Hello and welcome back to another edition of Viper Bites presented by the Fantasy Points Media Group. For your one-stop shop for all your fantasy football needs, head to fantasypoints.com today and use promo code VIPERS22 to get 10% off that subscription. Now let's continue our little series here talking about the top 5 fantasy football assets for all 32 franchises. And today's stop, the Houston Texans, starting with Brandon Cooks. Yes, Cooks is 28 years of age, and in Dynasty, there are some that may consider that an aging asset. But his current Dynasty experts consensus ranking here right now, wide receiver 37, that still seems crazy to me, considering that he is likely to see 150 targets per season over the next couple years and flirt with top 12 fantasy finishes at the wide receiver position. You're going to get production from Brandon Cooks for the next 2 to 3 years. First, let's disprove some of these common misconceptions when it comes to Brandon Cooks. One, Cooks is not injury prone. Sure, he's had some injuries, but haven't we all? Now, when you look at this, he's played 113 of his last 117 games. That's a 97% rate. I'm not even sure I've gone out of bed 113 times in the last 117 days without aggravating something. Second, Cooks isn't a true number one receiver. Again, false. In 6 of the last 7 seasons, Cooks has produced 1,000-yard seasons, and that's with 4 different teams. Yes, we're talking about the Saints, the Patriots, the Rams, and yes, the Houston Texans. Since 2015, only 6 wide receivers have more receiving yards than what Brandon Cooks has been able to produce. So it would not surprise me in the least if Cooks finishes among the top 10 receivers as far as receiving yards are concerned in 2022. Now, moving along to the running back position, we're going to talk about Damien Pierce. Currently, ECR has him as the running back 55. Marlon Mack, Rex Burkhead, and Royce Freeman are the only obstacles stopping Damien Pierce from becoming a household name. The biggest unknown is what to expect from Marlon Mack a year removed from his Achilles surgery. If the Texans are getting Marlon Mack, say, from 2019, where he ran for over 1,000 yards, then Pierce, he may have to sit back and bide his time. But inevitably, Pierce will ascend to the lead back role. It's just a matter of when, not if. Pierce was second in this year's draft class in runs leading to first downs or touchdowns, and he did that at 37% of the time in which he touched the ball during his last season at Florida. Pierce also forced a missed tackle every 2.5 carries and was 12th in yards after contact, 11th in runs greater than 15 yards, and 3rd in routes run when compared to the other running backs in this 2022 draft class. All this translates very well for Pierce at the next level and the next 2-3 seasons down the road. Next up, Brevin Jordan. Jordan not only made my Dynasty mustache player list, but he's also one of the top Houston Texans fantasy assets. Look, the Texans had plenty of holes to fix on this roster, and they chose to not worry about the tight end position. During weeks 12 to 16, the 21-year-old Jordan hauled in 13 of 18 targets for 112 yards and ended up with 2 of his 3 touchdowns over that period of time. Jordan continued to gain the trust of the coaching staff as the season went along, and his 9.1 fantasy points per game from weeks 12 to 16, that was actually better than fellow tight ends like Mike Gesicki, Noah Fant, and Evan Ingram. We know Davis Mills likes him. When targeted, Jordan had a 123.8 passer rating, which was the 3rd highest among the tight end position. Now let's keep talking about pass catchers here. Let's talk about some of these other wide receivers for the Houston Texans, starting with Nico Collins, currently going off the board as the ECR wide receiver 70. There is lots of potential on this Houston Texans roster, but potential doesn't always equate to production. Collins has yet to see much volume in this offense. His 13.5 yards per reception last year shows that he has the ability to produce when given the opportunity to do so. If Mills can continue to throw at a 66 to 68% completion rate and Collins continues to trend upward in his development, then there is a real possibility that Collins could become a perennial 1,000-yard receiver for this Texans team in the future. And as much as I love Cooks, Collins and the recently drafted John Michie, they are basically the future of this Texans team. Collins has all the tools. He's a big target. He knows how to use his body. He knows how to separate, and he knows how to win at the point of attack. Now, finally, on our Fantasy 5 for the Houston Texans, let's talk about that other drafted wide receiver in John Michie. If not for tearing his ACL back in January, I believe that Michie would have gone a lot higher in the draft. Unfortunately, on July 24th, Michie put out a statement in which he was recently diagnosed with APL, which is a form of leukemia. Some things are more important than football. And while the expectation is that Michie will miss the entire 2022 season, there are some positives here. APL is considered the most curable form of leukemia. Again, I'm not a doctor, so that's just kind of what I'm reading from the statement here. Michie also let it be known in a statement. I am currently receiving great care, am in good spirits, and I expect to make a recovery at a later point in time. As a result of my diagnosis, I will likely not be playing football this season. My main focus will be on my health and recovery. Thank you in advance for your support. Well wishes. I cannot wait to come back stronger than ever. God bless. Now, we all wish him a speedy recovery. We're all going to be right there with John Michie. Once he recovers, when he comes back from this leukemia, he is going to be stronger than ever. He's going to be fully recovered from that ACL injury from back in January. He's already going to be battle tested as going through this whole ordeal right now. And I cannot wait to see what John Michie does when he's back on the field. And when we look back at what he did previously, Michie was producing during his final season at Alabama, finishing with 96 receptions, which was second in the SEC. His 1,142 yards, that was the third in the SEC, which is something that the Texans desperately need. How did Michie do it? His 717 receiving yards versus press coverage was the second most in the SEC, trailing only Wan'Dale Robinson of Kentucky. Recent history would suggest that taking a shot at an Alabama receiver for fantasy will often yield a pretty good return of investment. And John, we are all in your corner here, from NFL fans to fantasy fans. Just know that we all got you here right now. So we are going to be sending you positive vibes and well wishes through this whole battle here. So just so you know, you are not going to be alone. With that all being said, this has been the Viper Bites, and we'll see you next time.